Meeting is recorded.
Right. Would the secretary like to call roll, please?
Yes, I will. Let's see. Cheryl LeGuardi.
Present.
Trent Bush.
Present.
Ted Rockwell.
Present.
Tel Jones.
Present.
And Andrew Shoemaker is not able to attend. And I'll turn the meeting over to our chair, Commissioner Rockwell, for procedural items.
Very much. So let's first do approval of the September 5th meeting minutes. I made a note about commissioners' terms that have been adjusted in the printout that we have in front of us. It was showing incorrectly in our packet as Trent and I both serving through 2024. I actually served through 26. I think you're off in 24. So that has been corrected. Were there any other corrections to the minutes as they stand? Or do we hear a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second. All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
That's it.
That's all.
We both came on in 21.
Thought it was a 5-year term.
That's mine. Yeah. All right, so the next thing on the agenda is the approval of the proposed 24 UCAMC meeting dates. You'll notice on the sheet in front of you and in the packet that there are two proposed changes to the normal schedule. One is moving from January 2nd to January 9th, and the other one is moving from July 2nd to July 9th. These both seem to make some sense to me. Do I hear a motion regarding the meeting dates?
I move to approve the meeting date changes.
And a second. Okay, any discussion about the dates? Anything here that we see that we would want to amend or otherwise change?
September 3rd, we might.
Is that Labor Day?
That's Labor Day weekend, but
Is the second Labor Day then? Is that the? Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out, Cheryl.
yes, it is the 2nd.
Yeah.
I mean, not that, usually people are back in the office the day after Labor Day, but
Yeah.
something to maybe consider down the road.
I do have a meeting that goes from 3 to 4. I'm just kidding. I do, but
Yeah,
that's how far my schedule's.
Yeah. Oh, 1 to 2. How about this? I'll propose that we can maybe consider that later once we all start knowing our own schedules. I'm going to call the question and we're going to vote. All those in favor of accepting the schedule as proposed? Aye. That's unanimous. All right. We are now moving into the public participation portion of the agenda. Is there any members of the public who would like to make a statement?
I see one member of the public on the call. If they would like to raise their hand to speak during public comment, now would be the time. Otherwise, we can move forward. Not seeing any raised hands.
All right. Thank you, Chris. We have two consent pieces, the consent agenda, and then also fund financials. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments they'd like to make about the consent agenda or the fund financials?
No.
All right. We are moving on. Do we have Jake Hudson Humphrey on the call here? I think we do. It is his time to shine. Jake, you're up.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
All right. Hopefully you saw my updates in the packet. First thing, we had our quarterly meetup last month. It was super successful. We had like our best turnout yet, which was great. Had updates from Danica, from the city, from sales and use tax. And we had about 25 people there, which is a big success for us. The next one is January 24th at 1:30. The date in your packet's incorrect. I think it says January 23rd at 2. Correct date's January 24th at 1:30. UCAMC is welcome to attend that, and I'll follow up with a more official invitation as it gets closer. Big thing we're working on right now is the city council meeting coming up next Thursday. So I'm working with a couple business owners right now to draft a letter, like a merchant letter of support that we're going to send to city council, urging them to adopt ordinance 8590. So I'm working on that. I've got the draft of that done, and then we're going to send it around to business owners for signatures, and we'll deliver that to city council on probably Monday or Tuesday by email. Third thing is we finished up our district survey with Community Vitality. I was working with Regan on that. We got 201 responses. We don't have an official like report or analysis yet, but I have some kind of general things I can share from my analysis of the survey. This isn't in your packet. We just did this weekend. So 201 responses. Most people lived on the hill. 40%. 40%. I mean, lived on or near the hill. 96 lived or worked in Boulder. We had kind of mixed responses to all the other to most questions, but there were a few things that there was basically universal agreement on. There's too few grocery stores on the hill. Everyone agreed with that. The hill has the right amount of live music venues and hair salons. Everyone agreed with that. The hill needs more cleanliness and beautification. Everyone agreed with that. And the hill needs storefront improvements. So I'll send along once we have kind of an official analysis of everything. I'll send that along. But those were the things I was able to quickly pull out. Other than that, I wanted to update. There's 2 new businesses. The Ginger Pig has finally opened. They opened, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. And then Nana's Dim Sum, they say they're opening this month, but sounds like it might get pushed back a little bit. So definitely by end of year. Those are my updates.
Excellent. Thanks, Jake. Do any commissioners have any questions or follow-up that they would like to do with Jake at this time?
Do we have, when say in the survey, the question about storefront improvements, I'm guessing that's primarily businesses that are storefronts that do not have businesses currently in them. Does that feedback, does that ever go to the property owner or to the management company of those empty storefronts? That feedback.
Do the results from the survey, will the results from the survey go to those people? Mm-hmm. We haven't. They definitely could. Yeah, we haven't. We don't have a plan for what we're gonna do with the results of the survey. But I think getting that information to the property owners of those vacant storefronts seems like a great plan.
Yeah, and I was just gonna chime in, Jake, thank you. Our plan at this point is Jake and I have a 2024 work planning session in a couple of weeks where we want to dive deeper, analyzing the survey results and maybe incorporate some programmatic elements or projects into the 2024 work plan and address some of these themes that we're hearing, but that's certainly something we could consider. I don't think it's a bad idea.
Anything else from the commissioners? Thank you, Jake.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we are to the matters from staff section. First up is Regan Brown with the Hill Revitalization Update, Yulee final report.
You look at my notes here. Okay, I'm gonna just give a verbal update. I'll start with the ULI TAP report. So I'm sure you'll remember back in June, which feels like yesterday, which is crazy. We convened with the technical advisory panel from ULI. So we received a draft final report from them at this point, which outlines the recommendations that they presented back in June. Chris and I are reviewing the report internally at this point, and we'll want to have ULI incorporate some of our feedback before distributing it more broadly or to the public. In general, the report is reflective of what they presented to us during that final presentation when the panel came to Boulder. So if you recall, the short-term recommendations includes activating the district, better connecting it to downtown, potentially launching a rebranding or enhancing the current brand campaign, as well as those longer-term recommendations for redeveloping the 14th Street law. So that's all laid out in the report. Again, Chris and I are reviewing it internally, and it'll be distributed more broadly and sent to you all hopefully in the coming weeks here. That's the update on ULI. We're still planning on pursuing broader revitalization efforts on the Hill, especially as it relates to those shorter term recommendations beginning in 2024. So as an immediate next step, we will really be scoping, which will include conducting an inventory of all the existing and upcoming work going on across other city departments and on their work plans as it may relate to an impact to the Hill at this point, as well as assessing our current funding pool and resources. So the intent is to develop a realistic scope and begin to vision plan and potentially bring on a planning and design consultant to identify specific projects from there. So we'll certainly keep you all posted as that work progresses. And then, as Jake already mentioned, just kind of looking a bit more in the immediate term, next week on November 16th, Council will vote on city staff's recommendation to update the land use code to create more walkable neighborhoods and streamline the approval process for businesses, which could definitely have a huge impact on the Hill.
So just a couple notes from me. We'll also be distributing the ULI TAP report to City Council through a regular information packet. We'll target the new council just so you know on their radar screen in advance of their planned retreat, which is likely going to be scheduled for March. So we'll get a flavor of what their involvement and interests are on the Hill in the months ahead. So we're looking forward to that. Obviously, today's a big day. We're going to know a lot more, hopefully tomorrow, about the makeup that we're going to be looking at on council. Another important note for this commission is a study session this Thursday, considering changes to the city's board and commission program as a whole. There are a number of proposals that are being presented to council. They're not being voted on yet. It's a study session, so we're just getting guidance, but it includes concepts of for general improvement districts specifically, reducing the term commitment from 5 years to 2 years, and then also having commissioners appointed by the city manager as opposed to a city council volunteer approval process. So whether or not that's accepted by council or something that they want to pursue, that's something that those are changes that could have implications for how we recruit for and maintain membership on this commission for sure. Let's see, I had one other thing on the Hill revitalization, but now it has left me, but maybe I did talk it. Maybe anyhow. Any questions on where we're at with all of that work?
Do you know if the term change for commissions is something that would be moving forward, or is it something that would affect backward? You know
Undetermined yet, yeah, right. As if your term all of a sudden gets shortened, undetermined.
And I guess the other thing that I'm curious about is whether or not there would be a limit to the number of times someone would be able to serve in consecutive terms. This commission has had a bit of a struggle maintaining even the basic numbers. I think we're still short an individual. And so maintaining that kind of institutional knowledge is vitally important for a mission like this one.
Absolutely. So those are all things that if the concept even progresses past the study session, that we'll want to make sure those details get answered.
Yeah.
Because there certainly would be unintended consequences if it's limited to a 2-year term and then you can't continue on, then it might be even more tough spot than we already have been, which would not be the intention of the work at all.
Hey, Chris, is it true? I know it was true when I served my first term that I had to wait a year before going on to my next term. So, early next year, I'm going to be in my 9th year, not including that 1 year time period.
Right.
So a 3-year, a 5-year, and then I've been serving almost a year past my term limit. So is that, I also was going to bring up a real concern about institutional knowledge. I think the first year is just learning what has happened, the background information, and grasping what the issues to tackle are. And I'd be curious why 2 years was what is being discussed. It seems detrimental to most work of probably any commission.
I think what likely could occur is multiple 2-year terms can be, served in consecutive order without that break in between, as opposed to now, yes, 5-year term, 1 year off, and then you can serve again. And now you're in this unique space where your seat was vacated as your term ended, but there was not somebody to replace you, and so you're allowed to continue serving as long as you were willing to. And we're so appreciative to you for that. The thinking behind going from a 5-year to a 2-year term commitment is some of the interview feedback that the consultant team received was that 5 years seemed like a big commitment to folks who were interested in volunteering. But when they learned it was a 5-year commitment, they were less interested. And so the thinking is that maybe there could be a larger pool of interested candidates in serving if the initial commitment isn't for 5 years. It could be consecutive 2-year terms. So again, too early to tell how this will land with council, because it does change significantly, especially when it's not just the GIDs, but any of the advisory boards. The recommendation is to have those board members and commissioners appointed by the city manager, which certainly changes the role of council when it comes to the Transportation Advisory Board, a number of those other dynamic boards that the city currently works with.
So why the change from city council to city manager? Is there a conflict of interest at all? Or I'm just curious.
Is it procedural?
Part of it is when the nature of the board is intended to be strictly advisory in nature, that is when the commissioners don't necessarily have any quasi-judicial authority, then a number of communities, this would be modeled after the approach that a number of other communities have taken, then allowing the city manager, who really serves as the CEO of the organization, to form the advisory boards that their staff are working with, as opposed to the politics and the city council, which then leads to sometimes a clash between an advisory board that doesn't really have any authority to vote on specific outcomes, but they sometimes tend to want to and behave as if they do, and that leads to a lot of challenging dynamics. not in any of our community vitalities boards and commissions, but.
No, that makes sense. It seemed like a whole lot of work to put on the city manager to make all of those appointments and learn who's.
Well, and largely what it would probably translate to is the city manager is a ubiquitous term for city leaders and directors. So it would give me more of
Not one person. does
exactly.
all of that.
I would
A group effort.
build relationships with folks as you know, as I have been, you know, Jake Hudson Humphrey could be an at-large, you know, commissioner. I could develop a recommendation. The city manager would certainly have to bless it, but it would give staff some more authority over cultivating the community members that we're working with to help make decisions for.
That's a really interesting concept, and that could end up answering a lot of the concern around institutional knowledge. You know, if there are seats for the university, the Hill, just as an example, right, the Hill Business District, that kind of thing, that could really help shore up and the volunteer status of the commissioners themselves. Interesting.
So again, time will tell. It's really preliminary right now. We'll see how council responds to it on Thursday. But it is something that I know many, if not all of you, were involved in that conversation with the consultant team. We'll see what comes next.
I have a really weird procedural question regarding the vote that council will be conducting on Thursday regarding the Hill and other areas of Boulder. Is there a chance that they would not vote? Is that even possible?
That same thing, like what could.
Yeah, and I want to make sure we have, it's next Thursday.
Right.
I'm sorry, next Thursday.
Yeah.
That was my mistake.
Okay.
Next Thursday.
Okay.
Next Thursday, right, sorry.
So, that
Right,
would
if
be
the
really,
results of the election are such, I could see the
So it is
council
a-
punting.
that is certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
They could always suggest that it needs to go to a third reading. But it's really hard to know how, what will happen.
But it could.
It could go to a third reading, or they could, there's three things that could happen. They could decide to approve it, approve the changes that were originally recommended by the planning department. That would lead to the changes for University Hill land uses. They could approve it with planning board's recommended changes, which was removing University Hill specifically and spending more time studying University Hill issues, which, you know, we're really good at. And the third option could be going to a third reading and punting to the new council.
And so in the third option there, punting to a new council, when would be the earliest that council would be sworn in and be able to make a decision?
I'm not sure when the first
I thought it was December.
December,
Or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
beginning of
So
December.
that's the absolute earliest would be
Yeah.
that first.
Mhm.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll know more. I would be really surprised if that were to, originally we had the second reading scheduled for last Thursday.
Sure.
There was some movement at the request of council members to have it happen after the election has happened. So there's maybe some less exposure, but we will see.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for? Oh,
I did remember what my other point was. Teresa Pinkel has left Community Vitality. She's moved back to Utah for an opportunity back home. We're all very sad to see her go. She again was our senior manager of business services and district vitality. We sent restructured, separating district vitality from business services. We have rehired Elliot Labonte as our senior manager of business services. So he'll be, if some of you may recall working with Elliot a number of years ago, he's on the community vitality staff for some time. So we're looking forward to welcoming him back. And we have an acting senior manager of what we're calling cultural vibrancy and district vitality. and that's Matt Shazansky. He's previously been the manager of the Office of Arts and Culture. So we're marrying our arts and culture function with the city and our district vitality function. So Regan is now reporting to Matt as the acting senior manager. We're going to do a formal advertisement for the opportunity. We will see how that plays out for the long term. But so you will be seeing more Matt Shazansky in that role, leading our district vitality initiatives.
Excellent. Any questions for Chris or Regan from things that just come up? Thanks for those updates, Chris and Regan. Moving to our next agenda item, which is the commissioner recruitment questions in front of us here. Are these reflective of the questions that we asked last time around? Last year?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Any discussion around what we see here? Any ideas to try to amend or otherwise add to this list?
No, I think the affiliation and the connection and how often you visit the Hill is pretty important. Which I think that was added last year.
I believe so. Yeah.
Tel is our commissioner that's most recently been through the application process. How did you feel about
I thought it was good. I looked these over again. I think they're pretty solid for your first interview kind of questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see anything that, I mean, I felt that adding the affiliation question this time was really strong. It's a good way of us saying, well, why do you really want to be doing this?
Right.
Do we need to vote on this, or is it just that if we had some recommendation, we need to say it now or forever hold our peace?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if there are no changes, we'll just proceed as is.
I would just kind of say out loud for the record that commissioners should consider communicating the idea that these applications will be open to the public December 18th. Do what you can to get the word out, see if we can recruit some good people on the commission. We are currently short one, and Cheryl is very kindly serving in a role that I'm sure she would easily step aside if she had the opportunity. So technically 2 positions that
I do feel greatly attached to the outcome of everything that's going on. But I do think fresh eyes are also important too.
Cheryl knows. I tell her all the time, I'm like, I'm gonna need you to keep you because I really need
apparently.
Are there any special qualifications for the open seats now? You know, in the past.
Yeah, so the thing is, we don't. You're as an owner, right, Cheryl?
Yeah, business owner.
Yeah, so that means that we need another female property owner, so as you own you.
Right, I think I represent
The owner.
the building owner, business, yeah. So
So
we need a property owner
yes,
or someone who represents, can represent property.
exactly.
And it has to be female, correct?
Yes, for one of the vacant seats. So it's just the one seat that's big, right? Because we've got.
We have 5 for the first time. We're very
Yeah.
Oh, except Brent, yours seat is, I think.
Yeah.
That's why, so yes.
You just, it feels like.
I feel like
got here.
but what is so sorry? What do I do to stay? I guess is the question. Do I?
I love that. I love that.
Right, if
think
we
you
don't
should-
have anybody to fill, it's been 5,
No,
No.
That's not, that's.
Used to
we need
take it
to-
over.
I took, I had a 3, I think I had a 3 there.
There were
That's
two things
probably-
open. There's
that's-
Yeah, 5.
Right, the
But I
seats,
thought there was a 3 and 4.
if it had been vacant for a while, that's probably what's happening. Because there's we
Right.
need to make sure they alternate in their vacancy.
So if I'm 24 and you're 26, is that correct?
Yeah.
So I think
3 and 5.
since, I think in the rules, and they have to check with the city clerk's office, but if you've only served a partial term for a seat that had been vacant, then you can, I don't hold me to this, but I believe you can serve another term. consecutively.
Yes, because that's what happened to me. I had to have a year in between, but I served a partial 3-year, then came back in with a 5-year.
So do I need to apply?
Let us follow up.
Okay.
With the city clerk's office.
Okay.
To get some good clarity around what you would need to do. I would presume now that you would need to.
And
apply.
you're you represent business. So,
Oh, you are on as a business,
business representative.
a property owner.
no,
You're at large.
I'm on as property owner, he's
Yes.
on his business.
And Tel, you're on as a property owner representative too, aren't you?
I don't recall.
We need to.
Are you at large?
We have time.
I must be at large.
You're at large, yeah, you're
You're
at
at
large.
large because you're CEO or not a resident.
Right.
Right.
Well, and
Andrew is a property, so we need 3 property owner reps and 2 at large. That's and that's, and trying to keep them all straight. So Andrew is definitely a property owner.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how do you go about promoting this open chair?
So in the past, we do rely on word of mouth to a certain extent. And then just regular communications, we do ask Jake in the newsletters.
Gotcha.
And just in other districts, we've done direct mailings. Boulder Junction is particularly challenged in keeping, because we have 2 commissions, so we do for 10 people in a very small district. So we've done direct mail pieces through property management companies and whatnot. So that's part of the challenge as well.
And I think in the past, we've, looked at what do we need? What strength do we need to come on to the commission that we don't currently have?
Yeah.
Given the work at hand, what we're trying to accomplish as a commission.
I think we have a really strong group kind of this exact moment for the first time in a long time. And not that to say anything disparaging about any of the past, just so we have full complement, right? But looking at who may, need to move on or want to move on.
I'm not chomping at the bit to move on. It's the continuation of work, and it's nice to see some of it come to
Yeah.
pass. I mean, in my mind, it started with getting the Hill exempt from the height restriction that was being passed for the city at large. I think what has made a lot of the hotel work, the Hill Hotel, possible. I think seeing it all through and seeing improvements it's going to be very satisfying.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it'll be that's one thing you can say to anyone you're trying to recruit. It's an exciting time.
It's a very exciting time.
It's a really
There's
Yes.
plenty of work, as much as you want to lean in, yeah, for sure. We can even take people who want to go up there, and clean the streets if they wanted to. We'll take that. All right, anything else regarding recruitment questions before we move on?
I guess just will I hear from you then before, because this is happening pretty quick, so
Yeah.
we want to have another meeting before.
Well, Lisa will certainly choose some specific
Unless I need to
yeah.
beat down some.
The term ends in 24, doesn't it carry him through 24?
Now it's April, I believe.
Really? Oh, my goodness.
March,
Yeah.
March is when they're appointed. Depending on how the meetings fall, but typically it's April.
God, that was
I was,
fast.
well, it was deep in COVID still.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean. We didn't have, what, a year of meetings?
Well, and it's been
We're at
confused
the
from the
end of
beginning.
March,
Even when they were voting on it at council, between the two of us, they were really confused in our interviews.
Yeah.
Well, and
About what they were electing.
Well, and again, it's showing Trent, your term from 2020 to 2024, which is only 4 years. So why is your term only 4 years? So we might.
He wasn't
need to have-
elected in 2020 though. I know that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We were both
But, like,
elected the same year.
Right, the seat was vacated in
Yeah,
2020. It wasn't filled
Yeah.
until later, and but even then, the seat term. Well, maybe that is, well, because you have to include the 0 year, so. No, is it anyhow? Because we got one on here that is 2020 to 2025 that Andrew's in. And we've got Trent's seat is 2020 to 2024. Let's give it the city clerk's office, and because they're the ones that keep track of all these things and make sure that there's not something that's.
The dates have moved around a couple of
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
and so I think that would be really wise.
Yeah.
If it's this confusing and we're all the nerds in the room, then who else is gonna know, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be great to confirm all of this.
Be right here.
Yeah. Commissioner.
That was my out.
Yeah. All right, well, we love the Hill too much to let you go, so. All right, anything else around commissioner recruitment, questions or otherwise? And we move on to matters.
I guess that's one, sorry, I'm just thinking about it. I mean,
Yeah, go for it.
if, I mean, with the renaissance of the hill that's going on right now, especially with the hotels. And I mean, that maybe there's, I don't know the management structure of the Hill Hotel, but maybe there's would they be, it seems like a pretty ripe place to be looking.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But I don't know anybody there.
The Moxie. I wonder if it would make sense for me to reach out to Danica and see if.
Yeah.
There is a contact for the Hill Hotel now.
Yeah.
For reaching out to, and they haven't released publicly that it's a Moxie.
Sorry.
But they kind of did.
Here, they this past week.
It
mean,
was
I-
released, the Boulder Hotel. What was that conversation we had in front?
Yeah, with Danica at the chamber, we'd heard that it had already
Yeah.
been
Oh.
released. But it's very, yeah, I don't know, I hope I didn't speak out of turn.
All right, well, it is a recorded public meeting. So
Yeah.
it's a public now.
It was,
Well, who did we work with as far as the group related to the annexation of the parcel that was outside of the district?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's not.
So, because we've had some contact with folks up there, because there was the Nichols group, there was the turnover that happened.
Right.
It was, yeah, a little bit confusing, so, but we did have to navigate through that for the petition to include that additional parcel, so we might have that's now next year. But I think that would be wonderful.
Can I step back to the makeup of the commission for a second? I thought that you said there were, how many business owners need to be on the commission versus property owners?
So there are no business owner requirements for the commission. It's property owner representative, and then 2 at-large residents.
And that, has that changed over the years? Because I thought it was always 1 at large, 2 business and 2 property, I guess.
Yeah, not to my knowledge.
Wow, okay.
And the key thing is it's a property taxing district, so it's important that a majority of the representatives are
Comes from the
Taxation with representation, yes.
Same party.
Yes.
Okay, great. No, that makes sense. I have a question from the commissioners. Is it possible, and I know that this might be a heavy lift, sensitive to not, put too much work where it's not, it's not intended to be too much work, but is there a way to get the sales tax revenue from the district, historic sales tax revenue from the district going back to liquor requirement change?
Is it possible? Probably.
Or is that public information where we could, I don't know that I have all of my packets going that far back. I know we used to get sales tax information when we met as a commission monthly. So it was always
Right, and we had tried to get that institutionalized in our packets, and I think since Teresa left, it's fallen off, but we need to get that back.
But the reason I'm asking, and it may or may not be useful, and I don't want to create work that's not useful, is it provides data to city council about the true vitality of the district.
So I think, and
that would be a data-driven illustration of what's happening in the district historically since.
So I am seeing online everything from December 2010 and on. So theoretically, and see if it includes the University Hill breakout. It does.
And not so much the parking revenue.
No, I'm
that
talking
has
sales step.
Significant changes.
So for instance, December 2010 year to date, the Hill had generated $1.15 million in sales tax revenue. That's 2010. So let's see, year end 2020, 10 years later.
Well, you don't want to use 2020 because it was what 2019.
Year end 2019. University Hill. $1.57 million.
So it went up.
Certainly went up, but so that's
Inflation
over 9 years. Right? I'm gonna, let's see. Comparatively, the downtown Boulder in 2019 was 12.47 million. And in 2010,
I'm putting together a spreadsheet there.
in 2010, so in 2010, the downtown was 5.88 million. So
it
more than doubled
in the same time.
the same time.
That the Hill gained. Not a lot. Yeah.
Well, and according to the wonderful power of Google, I was able to find a calculator that compares 10 to 19, 2010 to 2019. So $1 is worth $1.17 in 2019. So it's maybe an increase, maybe a modest one for the Hill.
but not close to doubling revenue.
No.
Yeah, and it's apples and oranges. I mean, the amount of development that
Sure.
happened downtown between those, you know, just the
But
size of
that
the
also
district.
speaks to the vitality of the
Absolutely.
district and the desirability of the district.
Absolutely.
If people are willing to invest and develop, and I know that's a long on-ramp to get to that point, but
I'd say if we, you know, have the capacity, we could pull out, you know, all the years for the Hill
Well,
and be able to paint.
it's really just an illustration using facts.
Right.
My biggest fear is that they will carve out University Hill past the what the number is. You know, past the land use change to make it equal everywhere else where it really is equal everywhere else. And again, just carve out the district and say we'll deal with this later when we study it more, because we have more residents that are louder than businesses.
To build on what Cheryl is putting out there, I'm wondering two things. Do you share the link? Because that's open data within the city. I'm not quite sure where to find that. I'd love to have that link. It sounds like it goes back to 2010. Was that the earliest year?
Yep.
Any thoughts on getting before 2010? And that's not necessarily anything you need to answer right at this moment, but if we wanted to look back, say, to the beginning of the century, how would one go about doing that? Where would we go? And that could be helpful for us if we wanted to try to put together a full research project.
The beginning of the century, meaning this century, not the last century.
2000.
Yeah, look at like a 25-year
1900.
Like a 25-year back to the turn of the century. 25 years would be.
Yeah. 25 years. 1998.
Yeah, sure. I'd say that depends on how finance reports, depending on where, you know, who they've what areas they've broken out over time.
Right.
I imagine they've been breaking out UGID for a number of years. So the data theoretically probably does exist somewhere. And the sales tax office is the keeper of that data. This is super easy URL, bouldercolorado.gov/revenue-reports.
And so maybe contacting someone in the sales tax department and saying, hey, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be the way to do that. Okay.
How far back do the UCAMC packets go online?
I mean, I've seen stuff from, quite a ways back. So I can't tell you right now, but there.
No, I'll look. That thought just occurred to me.
That would be really smart. Yeah. Because it's probably in there.
Yeah. See how far back my packets went.
Agendas and materials.
2007.
Yep, I'm seeing it.
And what
Yep.
was it, 2008 that the
So yeah, we've got materials back to 2000.
changed? Was that 2008?
I think it's 2008, 2009. Land use changes happened for UCAMC
2013.
It was 2013, that late.
What
Okay.
happened? Okay.
So the minutes I'm seeing as far back as January the year 2000.
Oh,
Great.
It's all available on the
And where is that?
documents.bouldercolorado.gov. See if you can just go there and. That is not a good link because it needs. If you go to the UCAMC.
Packets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. On the
And then
city
just
website.
And then there's a link at the top and you just go back to, because it has 2023, but just pull back to the folder that's for UCAMC specifically. That's
And it's
all
all
the years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
What are
think
you
just
trying to pull? You're just trying to pull sales tax revenue
yeah, I was just curious.
to see what it looks like.
I think it shows points, I think, if I'm
The
interpreting.
illustration is there that the district that is suffering, where our closest district has seen double-digit growth.
And there could be other data there too. I mean, I think part of an exploration like that could elicit some unrealized things that we're taking.
Well, and
for
if
granted.
I think it's likely that they'll carve out the decision on University Hill for further study. It's good to at least start thinking about what's there.
Yeah, I agree. That's what
There, I had heard that there was some data from UNA, right? You guys were in the meeting. I can't remember whether I was conversing with Nancy when you guys were around, but she mentioned that there was some data going around the neighborhood group that proves or that illustrates that the changes made on the Hill had a positive impact on the neighborhood. And I don't know what that data is, whether it's crime data, from the police department, or I'm not sure what that data is. But I did hear that there was some data going around from the neighborhood group supporting maintaining the land use restrictions.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm asking is what data can we present that shows that it had a negative impact on the district? Other than the visual impact that we all can see every day.
There are like vacancy reports on the Hill that are something to look at.
Yeah, we have a video that maybe some of the new council or even current council has not seen, that was put together a number of years ago when we were talking about the, I guess, parking, I can't remember which issue, hotel parking. The video, the cartoon video that
Right.
the Merchant Association put together.
And
Oh my.
Me either. I've not seen that.
I will send that video.
It will, Cheryl, you'll need to send it to Lisa.
Send it to
And then-
Lisa.
Yes.
Thank you. You know that I'm not great with procedure.
It's probably available on like Vimeo or YouTube.
And it was sent to city council as well. And presented in a public meeting to council.
I mean, if we really, if we wanted to gather contemporary data too, there's subjective data for sure. Talking to individual business owners about that are currently on them, about their experiences and about their.
That's what this is,
Basically.
basically.
Okay.
And I think the folks who spoke are all currently on the Hill, as well as other community members.
Excellent. It's good.
I think Dave Query is in there. Yeah, it's It's an interesting illustration.
There's something to be said for for the business mix, of course, and some of those things will go. Yeah. U-Bikes leaving. I mean, go way back, Kinsley leaving, Bill Cronin leaving, like just go down the list of sort of community assets for all of Boulder to just become
That moved to
restaurants,
even moving to a different district.
Yeah,
Like Bill Cronin.
all of them did.
Yeah.
U-Bikes did. Kinsley did. And again, that's going back. But
And more recently, Orvis Full Cycle.
well, Kinsley and Orvis worked together. Yeah, full cycle.
At Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen, Wave Rave.
Rave.
Yeah. So,
Josh and John's.
yeah.
All right, well, more there. I think that doing a little bit of homework, it would be a really good idea. Our next meeting is until January, so, and city council's voting next week. Right.
So I have a question. So I reached out to Chris, and this might be for you, as a business owner on the Hill, not as a UCAMC member. This was through university for the Hill Merchant Association. I reached out to Lisa Spalding to ask for coffee because I know she's expressed to me in the past, that she has some serious concerns. And so I reached out to see if I could have coffee with her and just kind of get an understanding of what her true sticking points were. In advance of this meeting next week. She's heading to Japan tomorrow, I think. But she recommended I reach out to Nancy and try and get the Hill Merchants and University Hill Neighborhood Association together to just, have an honest, open conversation about what the impacts are and what the impacts are for both sides. Now, if I attend the meeting as a business owner, what is the opportunity for other commission? What's the limitation if, say, Trent wanted to go to the university, if we were able to get a meeting together? What's the limitation of commission members being able to even be in that gathering?
If there are more than two of you, then it's certainly a public meeting discussing commission related business. We would need to publicly notice the meeting.
This would be between Hill businesses, so the Hill Merchant Association and the Neighborhood Association.
So, which is totally fine. And but nothing's been scheduled yet?
Nothing's been scheduled yet.
How much lead time do we need, Lisa, to schedule a meeting or to publicly notice the meeting? No, so all the commission meetings.
Oh, you mean.
So if I just go by
City
myself.
Hall.
Exactly.
Oh, I do it the Wednesday before
Or two is good.
or the Sunday, okay, so like a week,
A week?
like a week. Mhm.
I've had this question before, of because we've had this issue happen once before,
Right.
where we invited city council up to the Hill to Walk and 3 commissioners showed up. So a week is what is the procedure for ensuring that we have followed the rules around a public announcement of a public meeting?
What is the information that you have to provide in that public notice?
Who's gonna be attending,
Okay,
when, where?
okay.
What determines
The
the
basics.
public meeting as opposed to a neighborhood
Well, if
conversation?
3 commissioners are present because
Then it's a public.
then it
meeting.
has to be. a
So
public meeting.
if 2 of us go,
Then it's fine.
we're good. All right, I didn't know if it was still the same for that situation, if I'm not going as a commissioner, but I can't not be there and not count myself as a commissioner,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
You can be there and not count yourself. You can be there representing yourself as a business or
Business
property
owner.
interest, yes.
As soon as
So-
other commissioners show up, though, that's when the counting
Like
starts.
if the two of you showed up and I was there as a business owner, are we then out of compliance?
If there is any perceived business happening with the three commissioners. So if
We're talking about the city count, if we're talking about the upcoming land use change,
right, the moment that
we're not advising city council on.
So if only one person is speaking about, so if you're the only one that does any speaking and you all don't conference together at said meeting, then that would still be defendable because you're not together speaking as a body.
As a group. Okay, no, that's why I'm asking the question. Because I think the more perspectives from, that we can all bring to a gathering of the minds, so to speak.
Yeah, and like it could be as simple as Cheryl says something and the two of you are like, we agree, then you've just communicated as a
group.
Yes, and then that would be not good.
I think that's been one of the biggest limitations just from my seat of how the business of the commission is done, is that it's difficult. I have no idea what the community really thinks, partially because we can't engage without it then being perceived as a public meeting.
Right.
And that's a real restriction on being able to understand what are the concerns, what are the pain points, and how can we help address both what the business owners, their point of view, and what the community is trying to bring to the table. So it's helpful to understand that. I think that it will come in handy for us if it turns out something happens and we have 7 days notice. We could do, so do I reach out to Lisa to engage that activity to make sure it's okay? That may be a good thing.
And then as long as it's noticed and there are three of you there, then you do have that space to speak as a quorum.
Because in essence, we're an advocate for the district, even though, yeah.
And that's the thing, as long as it's been publicly noticed, you get to, you can have a microphone and be like, we are here as you can't see, and here is what's going on, and here's what we, yada yada yada.
And Mark's in the thread, FYI, about trying to get together with Nancy.
Or even more informally, we can be in that discussion, that community gathering, without feeling like someone may misperceive what we're trying to do. Even without a microphone, we can be talking and all of that. Is I think that's been one of the things. Sure. When we met with council that one time, I just was like, I'm not going to say anything. It was just ridiculous, frankly. But okay. I really appreciate you walking us through all of that, because it's so,
especially these days.
Yeah.
You have to be super careful.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the county commissioners, these are the three people who work in the same building together all the, every day of the work week, and yet they can only be together in the same room when it's been publicly noticed and all of those things. So they have to stay separate.
Where are you going to lunch today? So I can avoid that space. Yeah.
Let's not have coffee at the same time.
Yeah. Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate you bringing all of that up. Have you gotten a heads up on what the timing may be for a meeting like that?
I only requested the meeting today.
Okay.
So I will look to see if Nancy has responded, even if it's just a few people. I think Lisa has been maybe the loudest communicator in the neighborhood, and she was willing to get together for coffee, but she's traveling.
Yeah.
So she's like kicking into Nancy.
So I know there was talk of it, the Merchants Association suggesting that maybe there would be a, you know, informal happy hour kind of situation, Aeon or something like that, but I haven't heard anything beyond that. It sounds like maybe that hasn't crystallized.
Yeah, I think even a slight softening of the us versus them, which we're experiencing throughout every aspect of the world these days, would be nice. And sometimes being in the same room and how do we compromise? What can we be doing? The perception that this will make every business want to stay open till 2 a.m. and become a dive bar, which is the perception, I think, from the neighborhood association. There's got to be a shift in that perception. And besides, Quinn's was not a dive bar, it was a pool hall.
Yeah, and I think that our key, element of the work that we did with the ULI, this TAP report, for us, activation is key to changing the dynamics on the Hill. And that activation can include after 10 p.m. When you have some more presence up there, people who have an interest in keeping the space safe and clean even after hours, as opposed to all the businesses are shut and everybody's gone home. Guess what? Not everybody's gone home. And that's a piece of the dynamic that
we're not looking to add more of what we already have. We're looking to attract other businesses with the opportunity to succeed.
Bottom line is that those entrepreneurs have to be willing to invest the money and the time to do that. And even with a consistent regulatory environment across Boulder, including the Hill, that's a significant amount of money and time. And so having a welcome mat for those individuals who would want to invest in that community means that it shouldn't be seen as more onerous than another area of the city.
Everyone talks about the No Name Bar.
Right.
The No Name Bar did not close at 11. FYI.
It definitely didn't.
But if you look at the Waffle Lab, which I hear is getting evicted, that's what we're not looking for more of.
Yeah.
If anybody was on the Hill this weekend.
And Taco Junkie, I understand, they're open late night.
Yeah, we're looking.
And how's that
So I understand that the neighborhood doesn't want more of that, but that's not what the district is trying to attract.
Yeah.
No, it's a mess, between, those two right next to each other. I think one of them's going away. You probably see it.
Yeah, I see quite a bit. You shut down early.
Yeah.
We're smart.
But you choose to shut down early, but a lot of business owners would like the opportunity to go till midnight, 1 o'clock.
Sure. Yeah.
We're not
Yes.
open until 2 o'clock
Right.
every night anymore. It depends on the show.
This is a good discussion, and I would encourage commissioners to take a look at the data that's available and start looking into those things. I have a feeling that kind of background information and research that we can do will come in handy. Maybe it won't. I'll roll the dice and say I'll be optimistic that next Thursday things will maybe go the direction of the Hill. But if it doesn't, we need to be prepared. And I think you're right, it's quite likely it won't. Anything else on that particular? We could talk about this for a decade.
Are there any restrictions about signing up to speak at a meeting? I mean, we could all sign up separately if we wanted.
Yeah, I would say that
Rachel Maddows at the Boulder Theater, that I'm like, it's gonna be
yeah, it's a
challenging to be two places.
it's a public meeting, so but since you haven't had necessarily a formal board action regarding a commission statement, you'd still be speaking as a resident or interested community member, not as a
So it's too late for us to have a commission statement, correct?
well, it's not because we're not allowed to approve anything over email. So I would say it's too late for a formal commission statement. If you all got up there and said similar things, and you're like, I am a member of the UCAMC, but I'm speaking as a blah blah blah, and then the council would be able to put the pieces
It's consistent
together.
message,
Exactly.
regardless from the angle.
If you went up there and said, I'm UCAMC member, but and you said contradictory things, then that would send a different message to council. They'd put the pieces together and be like, oh, there's not a consensus among those individuals either. But we do not, we don't have the time to put together a formal in writing statement.
Sense. And so signing up for the public hearing for next Thursday opens up on Friday of this week. Correct.
Lisa, do you know?
Yeah, and
I'm feverishly typing. I'll let you know.
They limit the number of speakers, so it's a lottery situation.
If too many folks show up.
There are a lot of
And that's
opposition from the neighborhood that could take up.
right, which could also lead to a decision to
Table it.
move to a
Further
third.
down, yeah.
To move to a third reading, so folks can participate in the process. So that's the downside of
Too much participation.
and I guess I shouldn't say downside, but that is a possible outcome of too much participation from both sides. Is then council could be like, oh, we haven't had a chance to hear from everyone. We need a third reading. So
it's generally Friday afternoon, right? That it opens.
do we?
Enough, here we go.
Sorry.
I don't, no, I just don't wanna, I don't wanna confirm if I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Advanced sign up is required. In-person sign up the night of meeting is not available.
I think it might be on the next.
Opens at 8 AM the Friday prior to the meeting.
That's
Closed
great.
at 2 PM the Wednesday before the meeting.
8 AM.
So they also can, does it tell you how many people have signed up?
Well, there's the sign up's not open yet.
It's not open yet.
But I mean,
Oh,
sorry,
I
in
see.
general. So what you could do is
So-
if you see a lot of folks already signed up by Tuesday, then it's like, okay, we don't want to. And I'm not going to tell you your strategy, but
Sure.
so if you sign up super early, then if a lot of people do that, then you could have a lot of participation that then leads to a third reading.
And so if more than 20 people sign up, the clerk's office will randomly select 20 individuals.
Okay, well, that's all very helpful.
I think it's likely that I will not be available to speak.
I won't be there. So,
Okay, well then that maybe I'm gonna reach out to Andrew, who's not here actually, to see what his status would be. I was planning on signing up to give a very brief statement of support, of course.
I was too, until we had our show
Well,
canceled and moved.
The study session that we had with council regarding universal organization should be still pretty fresh on their memories and
They've heard too much from me at this point, so,
So another, a fresh face.
yeah, strong opinions.
Okay, and along those same lines, you know, no matter what, we're dealing with new council at some point here, and it sounds like we'll have ULI findings that council will be considering. I would like to, as an open matter for the commission to consider, getting somewhere on the schedule to perhaps do another walking tour with council like we did a couple of years ago. It's like 18 months ago. In relative adjacent to when they might be getting that new information, so that there's a relevancy to visiting the location with commissioners, and then they're also getting a study that's a part of all of that. I kind of leave it to city staff to help us navigate what that looks like from a standpoint of timing and scheduling.
I will not invite Andy from Alton's.
Oh, yeah.
I thought a little bit of history would be good, but I think we're past that point.
Yeah.
We're on the critical issue and knowledge phase. Quick education.
I appreciate that. And I think it would be good for everyone to be able to just do a site tour anyway. At the point at which we do it, we're either going to be dealing with a hotel that's about to open or has just opened, probably, is how I'm imagining that. That's fantastic because we can use that as a launching pad for what we would imagine maybe tourist traffic to be up the hill and towards the area of development that we're proposing, considering doing studies on. So anyhow.
So let's plan to work with Matt.
That took a couple months
Strategizing
to get a date.
districts.
Everybody.
yeah, works.
Okay.
Yeah, but also do a meeting.
Yes, we would want to be a public meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might end up contemplating formalizing one of the UCAMC meetings, and this is something that we talked about doing with all the GIDs, is having one of the meetings focus on an actual site tour assessment that we could incorporate just to have it be a regular special meeting on site.
And given the potential changes to how commissions would be formed, it may make sense to include the city manager or related staff, to your point earlier.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we can invite folks. It's all about the everything else they got going on, and even best laid plans, things that come up at the last minute that they
Totally understand. Right. Okay. I had one other thing I wanted to ask about. This is pretty minor, and I don't know that anyone will have an answer, but I'm curious about, there had been discussion of wayfinding signage at the new hotel that would lead people towards the hill. I think right at that entrance, near the gas station, essentially. Is there any movement on that? Do we know what the status of that is?
I can't remember when and why that conversation fell off, but it was the Hill Boulder and DDP were really leading.
Yeah, with
that.
Terry and Jake.
Jerry and Jake. So I'm happy to follow up with them and just get a better sense of why that didn't move forward, or if they're still planning something.
Yeah, time is nigh. It feels like that's one of those projects that if we could try to get momentum on, this is the moment, right? We should get the momentum going. If it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen, I guess. But if there's any possibility of that happening, this would be, we've got to strike when there, it's hot. Once the developers left, the signage is much harder to go up.
Yeah.
Well, and they might be thinking something as simple as what BBP has done downtown on the Pearl Street Mall. There's these little signs that they've attached to light poles that say Boulder History Museum this way and Dushanbe Tea House this way. And so it's not, they're plastic. It's a bit less sophisticated. They're not long-term permanent, but do create and they don't just say this way, it's a 5-minute walk this way. So that might be what was being contemplated to kind of complement the work that they've done downtown.
Yeah, I just hadn't heard anything about it in a while, and it occurred to me that by the time we meet next, it's too late.
Right.
So
Yeah, let me ask about that.
Cool.
About that.
Thanks. Those are the two things I had top there. Any other matters from the commissioners?
No.
No. All right. I'd like to thank city staff for this meeting. We've talked about a lot of important issues. Hopefully we'll have more days ahead, just like this. So our next commission meeting, we decided is going to be on January 9th at 4 p.m. And with that, not seeing any hands up, we're going to adjourn this meeting.
Cool. Great.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very glad to hear. We're done early.
You're welcome.